go. How does that look? Is that wonky? It looks a little bit wonky. Hang on. All right, hello. Here we go. I'm just playing with the tripod. Okay. I think that's all right. Does that look all right? All right, hello, live stream again. I didn't really think of anything to say while we're waiting for people to show up. So, what's been going on? Well, Friday is probably when I sort of had a little bit of a, oh, hello, there's more people. Maybe I should just wait until people turn up. I got everything set up properly. Let me just check. What's that? Yeah, cool. And that all looks good. Alright, no, I don't know. So, Friday, what happened? I think I had a little bit of a freak out. So I spent the weekend trying to relax, and then so the weekend Mondays when I made the video blog, when I recorded the video blog, then I started editing the crap out of it. And then Tuesday I was still editing the crap out of it, but that's when I posted it. Then Wednesday, oh my god, I can't even keep track of time. So Wednesday I had bonsai work. Now that's fun. It was super windy, it was kind of cold, but we were working inside, so that was cool. And I got to work on my first ever Japanese black pines. So Japanese black pine bonsai, they're apparently quite popular, and but I've never done it before. So back when I did classes, hello Hopi, do you want a hug? Back when I did classes, we just worked on other plants, so a lot of figs, junipers, whatever, and black pine was always a extra workshop class, and I just never signed up for them because I didn't really understand what the appeal of the Japanese black pine was, and I'm not entirely sure I still I've figured that out yet. I don't know, I sort of have an aversion to things that are overly popular, so maybe that's why I'm a bit like, okay, Japanese black pine, whatever. But no, I worked on maybe 4 or 5 black pines on Wednesday, and it's kind of interesting because the way you've got to prune them, I mean, they have spines, so you've got to pluck them out in the right sort of way and then leave enough so that the thing can keep growing, and you've got to check for little buds that also are shooting off. Yeah, that's what I've learned so far. I think there's a way that you're supposed to also trim the spines, but we haven't got up to that yet. Yeah, so I worked on those, first time ever. I guess I'll keep learning as we go along. I was a little bit slow to start because, you know, when you start on a new tree, you've got to get used to the sort of the structure of it. Because, you know, like, I mean, plants all have some similar features, but they do have differences that it's kind of important to learn. So, yeah, that was interesting, working on a new type of plant in terms of bonsai. You know, it's always good, always interesting, and I like that I'm still learning bonsai stuff in this job. There's so much to learn. And then, you know, looking at some of the trees that came in, there was this one that, like, they'd left the wire on for so long, so it was digging into the bark, which is no good. And so when I was trying to take off the wire, it was like I have no choice but to hurt the tree in order to allow it to recover, because it was just like, when you leave wire on a tree too long, the bark starts to grow into it, and then if you leave it even longer, I guess it'll attempt to grow around it, but then depending on how things go, it can kind of be strangled by it. So yeah, interesting tree that came in like that. And then we were also talking about the design of it. It was apparently done by someone who should know better. I mean, the wiring is probably the person who owns it's fault, that they didn't bring it in earlier, but the actual shape of it, there's some odd things that have been done. And so my boss was telling me about you know, the way that trees work, and when they have an injury, how they heal it. And I think, like, just that, I feel like, oh crap, I've made some mistakes on some of my bonsai in the past, I better not do that again. You know, just learning how things heal. That's really interesting. I'm always learning in this job. Mostly up till now, it's been more learning about pests. which it's hard because there's so many different ones and so many different products that you can use on them, and I'm having a little bit of trouble getting all that into my head, especially because I don't have a lot of the same products at home. So, you know, um, I think when you actually work on something and you like it's relevant, like relevant to what you're actually doing, I feel like that's when you learn faster. And because I don't have as many problems with diseases on my bonsai, but also like I just it's a different sort of thing, and I see so many more different kinds of diseases at this bonsai place from people bringing them in, going, "Can you fix my plant?" That I'm having trouble retaining that. But when it comes to things like the structure of the tree and how it grows and how it heals when you cut it and where you should be cutting it and how things operate in nature, that stuff's relevant because when I'm working on my bonsai and the design, I tend to be a little bit experimental and break the rules. So there are like some rules that are just nature rather than design rules that bonsai people have come up with, and the nature rules are the ones that I've got to pay more attention to so that my trees look better and will survive. I've got one maple at the moment that's just not growing. I tried to show you guys in the, not the last live stream, but maybe the one before, I don't remember. I tried to show that, but the live streaming thing, the connection just wasn't good enough. I think here it works all right because I'm right next to the modem. Whereas when I went outside, I was too far away, and depending on which Wi-Fi I'm using, I think it doesn't work. So it's got two Wi-Fi options. One is like it's long range, but it's more likely to be interfered with by like turning on the microwave or other people doing stuff in the neighborhood. And then the other one is what is it, like the 5 gigahertz one or something? It's more reliable, but it's shorter range, and I think I was using that one. So when I tried to show you guys my bonsai, the connection just kept dropping out. So yeah, let's not try that again. If I want to show bonsai, I'm gonna have to do that in a proper video. But yeah, anyway, so by the end of the shift, I was getting really fast with, well, not really fast, but a lot faster with trying to work out the like which parts to prune and just recognizing that. And I also figured out like I can take off my glasses when I'm at bonsai. It's just try not to poke myself in the eye with some of those. The microwave messes it up. Like I don't know if our microwave messes up the also hi by the way. I don't know if our microwave messes up the Wi-Fi, but that's what I've heard. Like when we got this modem, and I'm like, there's two modes, which one do I use? I was researching it, and they were saying, yeah, the longer range one, which is like the standard one, and I think the older version, that one is more prone to certain types of interference, and I like it's hard to know. Oh, thank you. Yeah, they're just like really basic ones, and then I put spikes over the top because I've been in a mood. But yeah, no, actually, one of the things about when you're trying to research tech stuff and frequencies as well is because I live in Australia, we have slightly different standards to America, and a lot of the information does tend to be American. So I'm not sure if like American microwaves are slightly different. I know American TVs are different, and there are some things that don't quite work here versus America. Like, I've got them somewhere. I've got my Neko Mimi. I got them ages ago, but I don't wear them because you have to clip it to your ear for it to, like, it's got an electrode on the front of your head and then another one on your ear, and I hate things being clipped to my ears. It hurts after a while. So, anyway, that thing, like, you know, it's supposed to be measuring your brain waves so that it moves the ears in response to, like, your emotions, your, reactions to stuff, which is funny because if you suddenly notice something, it'll be like whoop if it's working properly. Don't you need an adapter? Yeah, sometimes, but like with this Neko Mimi, because it's trying to measure brain waves, it's also got to filter out. This is my understanding. I might be wrong, but it's also got to filter out the other crap going on in the air. So this isn't about like power standards. Power standards in Australia and America are different. America's like 110, whereas we're 240, you know, in the actual plugs, the sockets. But with the things like Neko Mimi that are working on wave frequencies or whatever. So you've got the waves in the air, and I think depending on whether or not you're in Australia or America or wherever, the waves in the air are slightly different just because of the different standards. So when I got Neko Mimi, I had to get, I think it was 60 hertz works in Australia and maybe 50 works in America. I don't remember. Signal to noise ratio, yeah. I mean, like, I don't completely understand how the Neko Mimi works, and I haven't worn them in ages. Because the other thing is they take so much battery, and I'm just like, I probably should have gotten whatever the lithium was. Actually, it's probably still got batteries in it, and they've probably exploded, and I've probably destroyed it that way. I don't know. I don't remember if I took those batteries out. But yeah, no, I haven't worn them in ages. I can't. It's bad enough that it sort of sits on your head and is squeezing. I don't like that feeling of my head being squeezed. That's why I don't wear like hard plastic headbands, for example. You can get some really interesting hard plastic headbands that have like devil horns and stuff. I think Restyle has them, but I like they don't have any information about what the headband's made out of and how tightly it squeezes. So I'm just like, I'm not gonna buy them because as cool as they look, I can't put up with that sort of feeling. I just figured that out, and the Nekomimi were bad for it as well. But then on top of the head electrode was fine sitting there, but the one on your ear, it just like it's painful, and after a while I'm just like nope. And you know, after a while the batteries aren't working anyway. But yeah, I mean, I don't even have my ears pierced. There's nothing, you know. You guys get some stuff on DVD. We don't get. New DVD is a different region code. Yeah, I think we're region 4, whereas America is region 1. And so I wanted to get Danny Phantom on DVD, but it's only region 1 as far as I can tell. And I'm just like, I mean, can we get rid of region codes now, please? It's not, like, it doesn't make sense anymore now that we've got the internet, you know? That's one of the reasons they brought Netflix out, is because it actually helped with piracy, you know? When there wasn't a legit option to easily get this stuff, people just pirate. And then, you know, Netflix streaming sort of reasonably priced legal option. Australia apparently used to be one of the worst pirating nations, that sort of thing, until Netflix became mainstream instead of like, I knew people who had Netflix before it launched here, and what they did is they went through a VPN, I think, and made it look like they were in America. I think Australian Netflix doesn't get the same content as American Netflix though, so there's still issues there. And then I'm hearing in America, especially, I think you have to look up how to, online or buy a region free player. I don't know. I don't have the money to do that. I don't have the choice, so it's up to my parents. And like, can you imagine? I've got to try and explain to my parents what region free means, and then they're not really interested, so it's not gonna happen. Yeah. What was I saying? So, Netflix in America. I think I watched this in a YouTube video. I should have saved it. I can't remember, but one of the problems with Netflix is like Australia has a few streaming options, but there's not that many, I guess, because our market's kind of small. But in America, there's like a gazillion streaming services, and they're all sort of doing exclusive deals with the content makers, and then they have their own, I guess, like private sort of releases. They make their own shows now, and one of the problems with that is instead of creating proper competition, it's just kind of splintering the market. So if you want to watch this particular show, you need to get Netflix. If you want to watch another particular show, you need to get Hulu or whatever, and you end up having to pay for all these different subscriptions just to watch stuff. And it was sort of an interesting discussion about whether or not that kind of you know, exclusive deal thing was actually good for the industry, because at some point, I mean, you know, I think Disney's been working there on their own streaming service, and I don't know if they've already done, I don't remember, but you know, previously you get Disney stuff on Netflix, but then Disney makes their own ones, they take their stuff off Netflix, and then you have to get Disney's thing as well, and yeah, kind of interesting. I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of streaming stuff. I find it hard to like navigate through and actually find things you want to watch, but not that I've sat down with it a lot. But yeah, I've just heard some interesting things about streaming that make me wonder how long the industry will go for, or if they might need to reform so that, you know, instead of being able to do those exclusive deals, you know, they might have to share it more. I think one of the things it was saying is like there aren't any good new features being released for things like Netflix. Because they're relying on the content side of things rather than having to compete in other areas. And then there was some discussion about if you stopped the exclusive rights thing, would that also stop the production of, like in-house films or whatever? Netflix funding different things, Hulu funding different things, all the different ones. Or would they still keep making it? I don't know. That is kind of an interesting thing. How did I get onto streaming? What are we talking about? Region codes, hey. Oh man, region codes annoy the shit out of me. Because, it was also took ages to get Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. I think I can get it on DVD now, but I don't have money now. And it also turns out it's on Netflix anyway, and I think I started watching it. But I haven't been that good at watching TV shows and film lately. I was watching a whole lot of YouTube instead, tutorials on growling. I still occasionally watch a little bit of political stuff, but I'm a little bit, I've just had enough of the politics, I think. Hello, Peter! So we've got 3 people. Woo! Yeah, no, just having a ramble about, region codes and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. And the politics. So we finally had our federal election, and I followed a little bit of the politics since then because I was kind of keen to see who the next Labour leader would be, and it's Albo. So finally, they finally did that because, Shorten was never really that popular. But yeah, other than that, I'm sort of just tuning out because until the next election, I don't really need to have an opinion because my opinion's not going to affect anything. So maybe I'll just distance myself from that for a bit. Yeah, because I've kind of had enough. There's too much going on in the world, and I didn't pay attention to politics for a long time. I think until my most recent depression. So 2016, especially once I stopped working. And not having much to do, but also not feeling like I could do very much. So I just sort of sit in front of the YouTube for ages, just watching all this political commentary or political comedians and whatever. And yeah, especially 2016 was such a weird year for politics with Brexit, Trump, also Tony Abbott got in and he was an ass. I'm glad he's gone now. But yeah. I just need a break from that. I need a break from the real world and so on. That's familiar with politics. Here in the US, we have an idiot for a leader. Yeah. I mean, the thing about some of these crazier people is sometimes you need a slice of them to get certain things done because the crazy people are the only ones who are willing to do certain things. And I haven't been keeping up with American politics for a while. I'm just catching snippets of it, but there's some people who reckon his trade war with China isn't as bad as people are saying. I don't know, because something about rebalancing things with trade, but there's a whole lot of crazy shit going on in America. But then here, so who suggested it? It's either a One Nation dude or a Clive Palmer dude. I think it was One Nation. They actually suggested we should look at nuclear power, which I'm like, yes, we should look at it, but they kind of have to be crazy to suggest it. Doesn't help the regular people. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna quick grab a tissue. I'll be right back. Anyway. Alright, sorry. I've been sniffly today. I'm actually getting a little bit hot. I've been sleeping so badly, and I think that just makes me more sniffly. God, I don't even know how I'm functioning today. American politics. Yeah, no, I think the abortion thing's concerning. It was like, Australia, I think in some places doesn't have completely free abortion rights, but it's nothing like America. It's like, I think I mentioned this maybe in the last live stream, like Australia doesn't technically have free speech enshrined or anything, but the way things work, you kind of have free speech as long as you're not being a complete dick, but we're also just a little bit more chill in some ways, because you can call people stuff in an affectionate way that Americans would find just rude, and we kind of don't care. I mean, it depends what part of Australian society you mean, but I mean, we also don't have net neutrality in Australia, but that doesn't matter because we've got competition laws that say, you know, you can't restrict internet to someone because they're doing a thing. You know, it's the competition laws kind of stand in for net neutrality laws. And then sometimes the one time like net neutrality doesn't happen is when it actually benefits the consumer. So I was reading something, this is a long time ago, so I might be wrong, but I was reading a thing where the ABC, I think, with like some of those mobile guys, the mobile phone carriers, they would give you free or faster access to ABC content, and it turned out that was because the ABC had their content, like wherever they're stored, it's stored in more places around the country, so it just made sense to give people better access to it because it was possible, it was right there, and it didn't really cost anyone any extra to do it. I think that's what it was. I could be wrong. But yeah, so we kind of don't need neutrality, and we don't need a lot of the same things that Americans need actually written into the Constitution. And then even when things are written into America's Constitution, it doesn't always seem to happen that way. So like the abortion stuff, right? There have been some of the, I think it's the states who are making the laws now. I'm a little bit confused about how the federal and state stuff works in America, but I think it's the states who are making the laws about abortion, and one of them was like, one of the leaders in there actually said, oh, we're doing God's work by banning abortion. And I'm like, don't you guys have a separation of church and state? Like, what the hell happened to that? It's just, America's really weird in that sense. I don't understand it. And then, I don't know, I've been following the Satanic Temple on Facebook because that's really interesting. They actually got legal status as a religion, so well done to them. It'd be interesting to see if they can get anything going on the abortion stuff because, you know, religion, right? And the political guys aren't meant to make any laws that affect religion or something, and they've managed to get some stuff overturned. HN was blocked by some phone companies in Australia, but you can get a VPN. Oh yeah. I think like they've experimented with trying to block things in Australia, but because, you know, there's always a workaround, it doesn't happen. Wasn't there, oh my God, like years ago, the government tried to like create a nanny filter or something? Oh, the New Zealand shootings, yeah. But yeah, no, I remember, didn't our government try and make like a government-funded nanny net or whatever, like so that your kids wouldn't find crap online, and then the moment they released it, like, you know, 4 hours later, some kid cracked it. I don't know, it was something dumb like that, you know. But I don't know. I feel like we don't have quite the same problem as America. America's got more of that capitalist thing, so I feel like they would actually try and do more of it. Federal is the overall government. States is the state level. They overlap each other. Conflict arises when federal overrides state laws. That sounds similar to Australia, actually. That was ages ago. I'm starting to feel really old because every now and then I remember something and I'm like, oh my God, how old was I when that was a thing? Because, well, I'm 30 now and I don't feel like I'm 30. Supposedly I'm an adult. I should be functioning like an adult, but I'm not. Oh my God. Ah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, and then, you know, thinking about when I was a kid, and the internet kind of wasn't a thing. Like it existed, but it wasn't mainstream enough that I had access to it. And the first computer games we played at school, there was this game called Pod, and it's like this little red blob on the screen. You can probably look him up, Pod, and he's this little red blob on the screen. You don't look 30, you look younger, that's common. Yeah, well, a lot of, like, I still have to show my ID at a lot of places. If I dress up the right way, sometimes I can get away with just walking into a place, especially if I go in all confident like I'm meant to be there. But if I'm distracted or whatever, or not quite wearing something that makes me look older, I still have to show my ID. And then I still get people asking me like, how's school? And I'm like, school was fucking ages ago. But I think it's maybe partly the Japanese genes, because Japanese people look young, but because I look white, no one really picks up on that. They like the sort of subtle Asian thing going on. And then also I think I just don't dress like confidence is everything. Yeah, I think I also just don't dress like an adult most of the time, so that gives the illusion of me being younger as well. Because I don't know, chicks my age dress a particular way, and because I don't dress like that, it just gives the illusion that I'm younger than I am. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't know. I think those are probably the two reasons I seem to be younger than I am. But yeah, no, this pod game, it was like pod can, and you had to fill in a word. And my favorite one was pod can pop, because this little red blob man would suddenly start expanding, and then he'd burst, and all these tiny little bits of him would go flying all over the screen. Of course, that's my favorite one, hey. But you'd also like do pod can walk, and he'd go for a walk across the screen. Or a pod can run, and he'd go for a run across the screen. And he could swim, and he could sink into the ground. But if you wrote something that he couldn't do, like if you tried to write, of course as kids you would try this, if you tried to write pod can shit, it would say pod can't do that. Security specialist. I have to, hang on, where'd it go? I have to be dressed appropriately, usually wear a suit with dark sunglasses. Oh my god. Yeah, I would struggle with the uniform thing now. I think the last time I really had to wear a uniform was when I was doing the office job where my dad works. And I think towards the end though, I was just like, hey. I didn't dress heaps goth, but I probably would have dressed like I am now with the t-shirt and just like jeans or something. And yeah, oh my god, the worst thing about that place though was the music, because the girls at the front office were just playing pop crap all the time, and it just, and there was this one song that I had to skip because every time it came on, because I swear, like, it's a pop song, but it was basically about rape, and I'm just like, how are you guys not picking up on how shit the lyrics are for this? So I eventually figured out how to turn it off out the back, but that didn't really help because you could still hear it echoing up the hallway to where I was working. Thank God I was working on my own most of the time back there. Anyway, with bonsai, I don't really have a uniform, but they gave me these red shirts with like the bonsai art thing on it. And so I just wear that as if it's my uniform because, you know, we're working with a lot of dirt. And most of my clothes now are nicer gothic stuff. I mean, apart from my t-shirts and jeans and whatever. And then I don't want all my t-shirts to wear out. So, yeah, I wear the bonsai one as if it's a uniform, but they're not strict or anything. What was that? One of my jobs is a note taker, and I'm told to dress like a student to blend in. What does dress like a student even mean though? I used to dress crazy at uni, especially the first time I went to uni. Maybe a good beat, and usually people don't really pay attention to lyrics. Yeah, that's a frustrating thing, is a lot of people don't pay attention to the lyrics. I guess because I like singing and I also write lyrics, I probably pay more attention than some of those guys. Yeah, and pop lyrics tend to be so boring because they're all the same. I guess don't wear a suit and tie. Yeah, But yeah, bonsai, I need to just make sure I wear something that I'm happy with getting dirty. So I'm kind of glad they gave me a t-shirt to wear. Although, there's one jumper I wish I hadn't gotten rid of, because that would have been really good for the colder weather. Like, yeah, Wednesday I had to wear this purple one. And I really like this. Like, I wear this. It's from Uniqlo. I got it from Japan before Uniqlo came to Australia. But yeah, I wear that for like regular me, but I don't have any other jumper that really works, so I have to wear it for bonsai as well, and that means it's going to get dirty. And yeah, what's going on? There's lots of comments. When I work out, I like a good beat. Don't really listen to lyrics, just as long as it pumps me up. Yeah, like sometimes I can get behind that. It depends a bit. But once I start noticing lyrics that I really disagree with or that are really shit, it kind of ruins it for me. Especially like things like if it's got a particular sort of rhyme structure or particular sort of phrasing that's just awkward, and then I'm like, nah, can't do it anymore. What's the next comment? Well, I just woke up way too early, but I can fall back to sleep, so whatever. Now I can watch your stream while eating breakfast at least. Gonna get some water going for tea. And I'm on the wrong account, but you know who it is. Well, good morning to you. Gosh, tea sounds nice, but I've been having too much tea lately because I haven't been sleeping well. I just keep trying to caffeinate. God, even like the other day, I think both my parents were out, so my brother and I got takeaway, and I was like, can you go and get some Coke as well? And I had way too much Coca-Cola before bed. And then after the Coca-Cola, I was trying to make myself some chamomile tea, like to balance it out, and my brain just farted and I accidentally put regular tea in instead. And I'm just like, oh my God, my brain, what are you doing to me? So that's probably not helping. I should really try not to over caffeinate. But yeah, no, yesterday, 3 times, 3 teas. It's just like, I don't know. I've really got to try and get to bed by 11. I think I've just got to keep aiming for that. But my brain, I've been going to bed after midnight lately, and my brain just keeps going, and I can't settle. And then last night, I guess I did sleep, but I feel like I didn't, and I was dreaming, and my brain's still doing all this stuff, and just when I woke up, I was like, this is no good. Tea has antioxidants, good for you. Yeah, I like tea. I don't drink coffee. But that's because I don't like the smell and the taste of it. It's just gross. So no coffee for me. So it's probably good that I'm not on that bandwagon. I went to uni with a guy who drank a lot of coffee one day, and he was actually like, and kind of hyper and shaking and whatever. It was interesting to watch. But yeah, no, I'm a tea person, definitely. I don't know. I guess I like do things a bit differently to other people. Like I also don't drink alcohol or anything. I don't smoke. Don't do any drugs. Time for tea. I know talking about it makes me want it, but I had one not so long ago when I got up. I woke up a bit late. When I read, usually at Barnes& Noble, I drink coffee, a frappuccino. I like the fluff that goes with those coffee kinds of things, but if I'm gonna have it, I'll have it with hot chocolate. So yeah, but I can't be bothered. My parents have a coffee maker, and then they actually got the little fluff machine to go with it. But I probably could make my own hot chocolate with fluff, but I can't be bothered because then you gotta clean it, and I don't like cleaning. It's like extra work, nah. And I haven't really switched over into hot chocolate season, although it has been pretty cold the last few days in Sydney. I think it's probably colder in like Melbourne and definitely colder in Tasmania. Some places have been getting snow already, but Sydney's just cold and dry at the moment. So I think today is probably going to be about maximum 20 degrees, I think. But inside it's been a bit colder, and every night I've had to put the heater on. Frappuccino with chocolate and caramel, very tasty and rich, lots of calories. Oh dear. I'm not hugely into sweet stuff though. I don't remember exactly when I went off sweets, but there was definitely a point, and since then, I like the idea of chocolate and whatever, but I don't really eat it. So, I had to ban myself from post-Easter sales. There's like 3 times a year where chocolate gets cheap really suddenly. So I think it's right after Easter, right after Halloween, and what was the other one? I don't remember. Maybe right after Valentine's Day. They're all those days are cheap chocolate eve, and then you can go out and get lots of cheap chocolate. And one Easter, I bought so much cheap chocolate that it was still with me. Like I still had a stash the next Easter, and that's when I realized I had a problem, and I probably shouldn't keep buying all this cheap chocolate. Yeah, and I had to get my brother to help me eat it, because he just eats sugar like crazy, but he's also heaps active. He's a really sporty dude, so he just burns it right off. In, out, gone, I think he got a blood test maybe last year, and the doctors actually thought he was a vegetarian because his profile was like pretty much like that, when he's not. He has a lot of sugar, a lot of sweets, a lot of junk food, plenty of meat, all that kind of stuff. So he's not a vegetarian, but he just burns it all off, so it makes it look like he is. So much energy. Although I think he's starting to have to slow down a bit because, as you age, your body can only do so much. It sounds like you. Yeah, I don't have the energy for that kind of thing. So I just don't eat a whole lot. And, I'll have sweets sometimes, but I don't know. I suppose I've always had a problem with my appetite anyway, but I used to be more into sweets. And I know when I was doing my HSC, so in Australia, the HSC is like your final year of high school and it's your major exams. When I was doing that, I asked my parents to study chocolate because you might as well milk it for all it's worth. I would just get the basic blocks of chocolate though, nothing too rich, and just sort of eat away. And I think that's probably the last time I really did huge sort of binge. Age is just a number. If you're fit, doesn't matter your age. Yeah, to some extent, yes, but there's also biology happening, and there's only so much you can do to mitigate it. So, yeah, there's a lot you can do to you sort of slow the aging process. But then there's other things like I think if you're in a constant state of slight starvation, that can also slow the aging process, although it's not really that pleasant. But you know, my brother's Labrador, right? He was starved when he was younger, and he's ever since then has not. You fight against the biology. Go for it. Yeah, no, my brother's Labrador was starved before we got him. So, you know, he's a rescue dog. He clearly went through some abuse because he used to flinch anytime we made sudden movement. But because he was starved, his stomach's always been, always sort of struggled to handle large quantities of food. So we feed him small amounts, a little bit more regularly than our previous dog. And he's just never put on weight. And he's actually really healthy for his age. There's always a chance something will go wrong because, you know, with those kinds of animals, it depends a lot, and, you know, they might be prone to develop some kind of cancer or whatever. But so far, like, he's still really active for his age, compared to our previous Labrador, who was just a fatty. Mum's in denial, but I was looking at pictures of her the other day, and this dog is just like, you know, 50% more stomach, no, maybe double the stomach of our current Labrador. Is just like embarrassing in some ways. She was such a sweet, intelligent dog though, and I think that's partly why she was fat, because she knew how to guilt us into giving her more food. Especially my mum. God, she manipulated the crap out of my mum. But yeah, no, so our current Labrador, you know, I think he's probably always a little bit hungry, because he's a Labrador. Labrador's always hungry, but also he doesn't eat as much, and there is some theory to suggest that being slightly starved makes you age more slowly, and I'm not entirely sure what the science is behind that, but I guess your body is in a sort of semi-hibernation survival mode or whatever, which might slow some of the processes down. I don't know. You're an animal lover, that's good. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I love my animals, in the sense of, like, you know, wanting them to have a good life and so on, but I also eat animals, which I guess is a different way of loving them. Every now and then people think I'm vegan or vegetarian, but I think that's just because I'm skinny. And then when I had colored hair, you know, you can't get that colored hair in anything that doesn't list on it vegan whatever. Like, for some reason they all feel the need to say they're vegan, and I'm like, okay, we get it. So what people think I'm vegan. Oh my god. I've hunted for food, never for sport. Yeah, I feel like if you're gonna go hunting, it should be for food. If you're gonna kill an animal, you should make maximum use of it. So, you know, food, if it's like a cow, also get the leather, and like just use every part of the animal to make the most of its life. I feel like that's kind of the Japanese way. You know, you sort of thank it for its existence, and then you make the most of its sacrifice. I was thin, whatever I ate when I was younger. Now I have to watch what I eat, and it's so annoying because I love junk food and sweets. Yeah, I think your metabolism just naturally slows, and that's, I'm still waiting for mine to slow properly, but at least I'm eating more than I used to. Vegan rant plox. I don't know what plox means though. Yeah, we sort of mentally anthropomorphize our pets, but cows are yummy. Yeah, I mean, you know, my dogs are part of my family. That doesn't mean I have to care about someone else's dog. I do tend to though, because I think dogs, one of the successful things about dogs is they've worked out how to tie into our empathy a little bit better. Please. Oh, vegan rant, please. Yeah, well, I mean, I might have some vegan viewers, I'm not sure. And, you know, if that's what you want to do with your life, cool. I actually have some vegan friends who aren't annoying. I train up in the mountains. Sometimes I have no choice but to hunt, but I respect nature. Was a former Boy Scout. That philosophy is ingrained in me. Yeah, I think that's the way to do it, really, you know, because survival's a thing. Yeah, no, I have some vegan friends who are actually like they're cool about it. You know, they realize that not everyone's going to be able to do it. Because for someone like me, like let's say I buy into the vegan philosophy just as a theory. Okay, if I buy into it, I don't think I would survive on it. Like there's a lot of people who try veganism and then their doctors will be like, you can't do this anymore because you're not getting the right nutrients. Like here are the things that are happening to you because of your diet. And I think I would be one of those people because for one thing, I struggle to eat as it is. And if it's food that I don't like, something happens and my appetite just dies. I don't know why. It's not something I can control. So if you tried to put me on any kind of diet, I mean, this is the reason I didn't take MAOIs. It felt like I was starving. Yeah, I think a lot of people get that. I think some people do veganism to lose weight. I know my ex, he kind of did it for those reasons. I think. And I know in Japan, they don't really have that sort of animal ethics culture. So people go vegetarian or vegan mainly to lose weight rather than because, oh, the poor animals. Um, but yeah, no, I'm not the kind of person who could ever go on a diet. I mean, I'm too damn small as it is. Um, which has been a little bit of a frustration for my life because people assume that being skinny is good, and there are some health benefits. Like, you know, there are certain diseases I'm less likely to get by being thin, but you know, if I stand up too quickly, sometimes my blood pressure is too low, and that's annoying. And then it's also not great for things like singing because, you know, my body is just small, so I don't have the lung capacity of other people. And then for things like martial arts, I used to like martial arts, but I'm too damn small for it. Simple rule to losing weight: burn more calories than you intake. It's that simple. Yeah, for me, like, I probably just don't intake very much, so that's part of why I stay small, because I just don't have the appetite. And if I overeat, oh my god, that's something interesting that happened is, so I don't know if you guys remember, I used to be on Cypramill, and that was the thing that was suppressing my appetite for ages, and I didn't work out for a long time until I think the first time we tried doubling the dose, and yeah, my appetite got so much worse. Um, and then also, on top of that, I've always naturally had a low appetite, but being on meds for so many years and having that affect me that way, I think I never really learned proper self-restraint when it comes to eating. So recently, you know, mum made something that was really yummy, and there were like these potatoes, and they were really yummy potatoes. And so I went back for a second potato. I love potatoes. But anyway, potatoes. And I ate the potato, right? It was fine, but I overdid it. It was too much for my stomach. Like my stomach hadn't quite caught up with the amount that I'd eaten. And when it finally did catch up, holy crap, I felt awful. And I mean, you know, it's a potato. Potatoes are benign. There's nothing in that that's going to make you feel particularly crap. But I just overate and I couldn't handle it. And I was like, wow, this never used to happen to me. But since I stopped taking medications and my appetite came back, and also I've been happier, so it's been easier to eat. This happens. This sort of thing has sort of been gradually happening to me more and more, and I'll just overeat and then feel like crap, and then not be able to eat for ages after that because, you know, my stomach's just protesting. Oops, it's kind of hard to. In Sweden, 2 people just last week were convicted for child endangerment abuse for not giving their baby enough nutrients. Vegan parents. Some people too stupid vegan. Oh my god. That's like people who try and put their cats on vegan diets. I mean, cats are carnivores. They're not like dogs where they can, you know, mix it up. It's just, I eat everything. I eat a lot. I'll just burn off the calories. Yeah, you sound like my brother. What's this? So sad. Shouldn't make him beans. Children are growing. They need proteins. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can't get through a vegan diet naturally. I think, don't even get me started on the animal abuse. Yeah, it's I mean, I've got a friend who's a vet, and I've heard some interesting stories about people doing dumb shit. Yeah, hang on, what? Oh dear. So, I think what annoys me, like, vegans, it depends on what kind of vegan you talk to, because some vegans realize that not everyone thinks the same way as them, but then you get the vegan extremists, and they're the ones who are annoying. But the ones who annoy me the most are the vegans who are pro-organic and like anti-GMO, because, you know, it's a contradiction, right? You cannot do the vegan thing and be completely organic. I volunteer and help out at animal shelters. Awesome. Yeah, because, I mean, purely vegan food, you're missing things like vitamin B12, which is really important. You know, you can get really sick if you become deficient in that. And there was a whole list. I don't even remember all the things. Most vegans, I think, is yeah. I mean, I think it's probably the more annoying vegans who tend to speak up. You know, like in any of these movements, any group of people who rally around a cause, you always end up with extremists who take things too far, and they tend to be the ones who they don't seem as capable of considering that other people might have another perspective, and so, you know, they're also not capable of really thinking things through, and then they're the ones who are loud, and they're the ones that we see, and that's why there's probably a stereotype of vegans being annoying people, even if that might not be the case for the majority of them. But yeah, no, the vegan plus organic thing gives me the shits, because, you know, if you genuinely care about the animal ethics side of things, you kind of need GMOs or some kind of food technology to get around it, because how are you going to get vitamin B12 into your food? You have to buy like fortified foods and hope that that's enough. And, you know, if you could genetically modify vegetable matter to have the stuff that you need, then you don't need to kill animals, kind of thing. You know, you could, and then, or you could like take vitamins, yeah, but where do the vitamins come from? You know, they've got to make the vitamins some way, and you know, it's an expensive way to live too. And then, like with a lot of medications, right? A lot of medications either contain animal products or have involved animals in some way, like the horseshoe crab or whatever. So like everything does use animals. I mean, if you're vegan and you're hardcore vegan, you probably shouldn't fly in an aeroplane because they test the engines for bird strike by firing frozen chickens into them. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that animals are used for in that sense. And, you know, like, they don't like that animals are used for this kind of stuff, but what else are you going to do? Use humans or risk humans for it? We've got to decide at what point, you know, what do we value more? And it's interesting also sometimes that a lot of the more militant vegans will rant for ages on their Apple phones or whatever and ignore that whoever made those Apple phones may have been through some shit that's, you know, up there with animal abuse, you know. There was that scandal many years ago about people jumping out of the factories, you know, to commit suicide because the conditions were so bad. I think they've tried to improve that, but there's still plenty of that going on around the world. And even if it's not actually in the factories, did I rant about electric cars and so on? You know, the batteries for a lot of our electronic products contain things like cobalt, which are mined in, I don't know, shitty African countries or whatever, where there's, you know, some horrible dictator in charge of the place, and the people actually doing the mining or abuse the crap out of them, and they also get quite sick because, you know, this isn't safe stuff. Some of it's quite toxic. You know, there's a lot more going on behind pretty much all our products. Like pretty much everything we make involves exploitation at some level. It's kind of just a fact of existence. Even in research, a protester told me I should do an in vitro study instead of in vivo, but I gave them a list of animal products used in human cell culture, such as fetal bovine serum. Yeah, like pretty much everything. I don't think these people really understand quite how much we rely on this stuff. I'm gonna drive soon, gonna go hiking, check up on the harvester ants. I feed the harvester ant colonies on trails I hike. Got my headlamp. Will be a night hike. Hopefully my cousin joins me. Oh, yeah, my ants. I think my smaller ant jar is dead. Actually, I was filming some video for some of that. I've been filming like lots of little clips of videos, but I feel like, you know, people don't really care about that stuff. So I haven't really figured out how I'm gonna post them. I might just like do one mega long video with all the different garbage content that I make, and then put little bookmarks in the video description so that if you are interested, you can jump to the different bits. Because I've also got like pet videos, which also aren't that popular. Everybody in my family thinks I'm kind of crazy. They don't fit. Yeah, well, you know, I'm the crazy one in my family too. Not only that, but the batteries themselves are detrimental to the environment, but most people don't think about that. Yeah, and actually, Australia at the moment, I saw on the news a couple of days ago, tarantulas. No, but I have a huntsman, or I had a huntsman on the other side of my bathroom window, trapped between the window and the fly screen. I think it was the one that was in this room like months ago, and then I don't know, it somehow got from here into my room, into my bathroom, and out the window. This would have been in summer when I had the window open. And then I would have closed the window, not seeing it there. And then just like for a week or two after that, there was this shadow of a spider at my bathroom window. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not opening that. So probably when summer comes back around, I'm gonna open that window and there'll be dead spider, and I'll just be like, sorry, mate. I mean, I like spiders because they help control the bugs, but I was not going to deal with that because it would, like, the only place for it to go is back into my room, and no thank you. I did have a spider living under my bed one time, and it sort of ran across my pillow right in front of my face, and I was like, oh, okay. But I never saw it again, so yeah. That's fun. What was I just ranting about? I don't remember. I left the hobby because of depression that had many species and I miss it. Yeah. Well, the ant thing is not going so well for me because I think the smaller jar, the queen that I caught, I think she's dead. And because I haven't seen any ants in there for a while. And then I saw a bunch of flies in there and I don't know where they came from. So I put plastic over the top. And then more flies appeared, even though they couldn't get out of the plastic. Like I had air holes, but they're too small for them to get out of. And then the flies died and got all moldy, and then nothing since then. So it turned into a fly farm briefly, but now it's just dead. And I put it outside to get some sun to try and kill the mold, but I don't think anything's in there anymore. But my other ant nest is going all right. You know, I found a caterpillar for them to eat the other day. I think I filmed that. That is a problem many get. Ant starter colonies can die for no reason. Yeah, I don't know. I think I might have like, it might have had too much mold, and you know, I was trying to make sure it had enough water, but when you put water in, that encourages the mold, and it's this constant struggle between making sure they have water and making sure there's no mold. And maybe they just got sick. But the colony that I got in December, that one's going really well. There's still eggs, so I must have queens in there. Yeah, good. That's all working well. Let me try and remember where we were up to. Yeah, vegans and stuff. Hey. Yeah, I don't know. I think with the back to the organic thing, you know, you know, it's just going to be really difficult to get everyone onto a plant-based diet, especially because you know, there are some places that you could just can't grow crops properly. I think Australia is maybe big for that because we've got a lot of like bushland and whatever that's not really suitable for growing crops, but you know, it grows grasses and stuff, and you know, there's hills and all this kind of thing that's not really, it's kind of awkward to plant on that. So it's much easier to get like some cows or some sheep in there and they can just roam around, and then you know, it seems to be a little bit more sustainable for us in that sense. So, you know, you can't just convert all like animal land into crop land. And I mean, if you go organic, you need even more land because, you know, it's just not efficient. I'm a little bit annoyed about what's going on with all the people trying to sue Bayer for glyphosate because I think that's not being done scientifically. America, like, I don't understand why America is letting random juries decide science. It's a really bizarre situation. And then like, you know, the guys, what is it, the World Health Organization's International something research on cancer, they listed glyphosate as probably carcinogenic, like alongside at the same level as things like coffee and meat. And I'm just like, I don't know why we're bothering with this stuff. Yeah, it's a real shame because if we get rid of glyphosate, we're going to struggle with our agriculture industry. We do need to come up with different herbicides though, because there are more weeds that are becoming resistant to glyphosate. But you know, you can't do this kind of crap and expect it to work well. with the increasing population, we need to become more efficient at how we use agricultural land and agricultural resources and, water. Because using genetically modified stuff and products like glyphosate means you need less water. We're going through a drought right now. If there's not rain soon, Sydney will be back onto water restrictions, which is going to be fun, especially because I work in bonsai now. I'm not sure how that would affect my boss's business, because they need to water a lot of plants, and so do their business partners, because it's like a shared nursery with some other dudes. And they're like, they need a lot of water to keep these plants alive. So I don't know. I suppose they probably aren't so strict on businesses that require water like that, but it depends on how bad it gets. Because there's been a drought in New South Wales for a while. And then the Murray-Darling's like dead. But now Sydney's going to have some trouble, and they've got this desalination plant, but they turned it on a while ago, and I think maybe it's now producing water. It takes like months to actually do anything, and then it only supplies like a tiny proportion of southern Sydney or something like that. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. And when you've got this sort of climate change kind of stuff, you need to work on technology to keep producing food and all the things that we need. And yeah, the organic thing, I mean, they go on about how big companies, big chemical companies and big GMO companies are supposedly evil, right? But Big Organic, they're also a corporation who just wants to make money. They'll hide it behind this sheen of, ooh, aren't we so good for the environment? But they're kind of not. I think there are some ideas within organic theories that are worth incorporating into modern agricultural practice, like not planting the same kind of plant for acres and acres and acres, because that's bad for bees. Bees need a little bit of variety. Australia doesn't have the bee problems that America does with colony collapse disorder, but we don't want to get to that point. We want to make sure the bees have something to do driving and what. Okay, make sure you keep your eyes on the road and stuff. Don't let me distract too much. Driving and listening is probably a safer way to go. But yeah, no. So organic things like mixing up the crop mix, that's probably an idea we could incorporate into mainstream agriculture. Things like getting rid of chemicals, the organic industry does use pesticides and herbicides and so on. The difference is they're like supposedly natural sources instead of synthetic stuff, but some of these things are actually more toxic. I mean, things that are natural aren't necessarily healthier. Like arsenic is natural. I don't think any of us are going to go out and, try to consume some arsenic anytime soon with the idea that it would be a health benefit. Well, that would be kind of, how like these trends always pop up where people, there's like some new all natural product. I wonder if we could start a trend for arsenic and get some of these douchebags into it, because, they're just sort of blindly following the all natural kind of bullshit. And I'm just like, no, stop it. So yeah, I get frustrated by the whole organic industry kind of thing. A handful of ideas are worth picking up, but the overall watch the road, man. Yeah, I just every set of ideas that people come up with, I think there's something in there that you could probably learn from and incorporate into the wider narrative, but you've got to be careful not to get into the extremes of stuff, because the extremes are where echo chambers happen. And oh my God, that reminds me of this article. So, our federal election, right? The Conservative Party, like slightly right-leaning kind of party, they're the ones who won, and it was kind of a surprise. Everyone was expecting the more left-leaning party to win, and because that's what the polls were saying. And there's been some interesting discussion about why polls aren't as accurate as they used to be. But there was this article after the results came out where this young person, it sounded like a student from like, I don't know, Newtown, inner Sydney kind of area near the universities, bloody students. And I think they're a Greens voter. And, you know, living in that area, they've been surrounded by that kind of Greens voting attitude forever. And this student, they're writing, you know, this is my first election and I thought we were going to change stuff, but clearly I've been living in an echo chamber and all that kind of stuff. So she's realizing she lives in an echo chamber. And it was a great article for most of the way through. But then, oh, hello. Then her solution though, instead of saying like, you know, maybe I should listen to more people's ideas and broaden my perspective. No, her solution was we just need to campaign harder to change people's minds. And I'm like, you have not understood the issue at all. You need to understand what's going on outside your Newtown bubble. You know, oh, it's just the echo chamber thing. Because the Greens are much more farther to the left. I'm just, yeah, it was pretty bad. And you know, my dad read it as well. My dad is much more right leaning, and yeah, we're both just like, oh my god, I can't believe that's the lesson you got from this damn election. There's so many more issues. It's like there's people. I had to hide a few people on Facebook because they're blaming the election results on things like misogyny and homophobia, and I'm just like, that is not what happened here. You have not listened to any of the other people. Like, I get it. Coal. We don't want to have a coal industry, but no one has the balls to suggest nuclear other than fucking one nation. So you're gonna have to rely on renewables, and renewables, I'm sorry, today they're just not at the right level. There's another thing I saw recently. Apparently Australia, like I don't know if it's just New South Wales or if it's other states as well, but they've had solar programs to try and get more solar panels on rooftops. But what's happening is we're getting a lot of the cheap shit the cheap shit that doesn't work, and people are installing this on their roofs. And they'll work for a little bit, but then they'll break down after like 3 years, which isn't enough to get any kind of return on investment from your money, from the environmental side of things, because it costs, it has an environmental impact just to make these things, and then we don't have any proper recycling things set up to deal with these broken solar panels once they're done. And you know, they've got those electronic components in there that, you know, electronics contain a lot of toxic stuff. You have to process them so that they don't cause some other environmental impact elsewhere. And God knows they were probably made in China, so we have to ship them in on boats anyway. Like, you know, shipping things uses fossil fuels to get things here. You know, it's just like, oh my god. Like, I understand the impulse to want to be environmentally friendly. Okay, let's try, but let's actually look at the science instead of trying to do things based on feelings. It's like a bunch of the shops in Sydney and I guess New South Wales more broadly, so like the big supermarkets, they stopped giving out regular plastic bags, and you now have to get these thicker plastic bags that I think cost 15 cents, although I don't know if they scrapped that charge. But so the idea with the thicker plastic bags is they're meant to be reusable, and then you also bring your own bags in. But the thing is, the old thin plastic bags, yes, not great for the environment, but when you look at the impact, the thicker plastic bags, I mean, they contain more plastic. That means when they break down, there's more particles that are going to go into the ocean or whatever and into the bellies of fish. So the number of times that you have to use one of these thicker plastic bags to even equal the level of impact in the other plastic bags, you have to use them so many times, it's just not worth it. What's this? The next generation of nuclear is not only safe, but we can use waste from older ones. Some people I've talked to who are against it have really no idea why. Yeah, I've been looking at some of the stuff like the thorium reactors. That's an interesting concept. But even with standard nuclear, like, you know, the technology's moved on. And if we hadn't had freakouts about it, we'd be even further ahead. But because, you know, scary, things don't work. I think the main barrier for Australia becoming nuclear would be the startup costs, because as far as I know, we've really only got Lucas Heights reactor, which is a medical reactor. So it would take a lot to build the infrastructure. But I think, you know, if you're looking at cost benefit, take your canvas mug, take your canvas bags, yeah, to the supermarket. I've got a little fold-up bag in my bag. these days, so I can just bring it out. It's in a little pizza case. My friend buys me these fun little things like that now and then. But yeah, no, Australia going nuclear, it'd be expensive to start up, but it's not just about economics. I mean, renewables aren't really doing well for us economically anyway. Power prices have been going up, and I think it's partly the renewables, but partly because the guys who are running coal plants or who want to open new coal plants, they don't know what to do because we don't have a very stable policy in Australia, so that's sort of stifled investment. But I feel like we're just overall not doing well with the economics of power generation. So, nuclear is something that we should look at, especially because the amount of material you need versus how much power you can get out of it, that ratio is better than things like coal. It doesn't produce greenhouse gases. Yes, it produces waste, but if you build something like this from the ground up, you can actually use that waste in a you can do the recycling thing. We've had nuclear recycling technology for ages, so why not? If they planned it well, I think it'd be fine. And, it'd take a while to build a power plant. So some people have said, you can't really put it in a city because politically that's going to be impossible. So you need to put it somewhere a bit remote, but then it's going to be so far away from the places that need power. And I'm like, yeah, but by the time you finish building the plant, could have built those power lines. And I mean, the states are connected in terms of power. Like Tasmania has power cables going to the mainland, so it's not like it can't be done. I don't know. It's just like, why are we not even considering it? I'm not saying we have to go nuclear, but why don't we even think about it? There's so many options for power generation. We should be looking at the pros and cons of every single one. But because nuclear is scary, we don't go there. And I just like, for me, it's kind of like airplanes, right? So airplanes, there are some people out there who have phobias about going on airplanes, and some of it is just like an instinct thing they can't control, but some people buy into the whole airplanes are scary, plane crashes are scary, blah, blah, blah. But you're more likely to die driving to the airport than you are once you're on the plane, because we're like, in the early days, sure, airplanes were much more dangerous. There were some pretty bad accidents that happened, but we got our shit together, got our science and engineering together, and we're constantly improving flight technology. There is that current Boeing one, is it Boeing? The MAX planes that are kind of shit. But once people notice a problem, they're like, okay, we need to fix this. And they take a dangerous plane out of the sky and the rest are fine, The way I see it, nuclear is a bit like an airplane, because when one goes down, yes, it's terrifying, bits go everywhere, people die, there's more people on a plane than there is in a car. So obviously when a plane goes down, more people are going to die per plane. But if you look at how many flights there are versus how many people die, it's a much better ratio than, the cars and how many people are dying in cars every damn day. And then with nuclear, yes, there have been some spectacularly bad accidents, but in the grand scheme of things, the number of people affected is much smaller than people dying from coal mining accidents, mining toxic things for batteries for renewable power. At least like the last time I looked at the statistics, I haven't looked at them in a while. So, everything I say take with a grain of salt because I'm just going off the top of my head. But the last time I looked, the statistics for nuclear are actually quite good. When Chernobyl went down, that was an accident caused by them fucking around with stuff they probably shouldn't have been doing. So for one thing, like, that was definitely human error from what I can tell. And, humans will always make errors, but you can design systems to mitigate that, and you can also learn from the past. But I think one of the concerns is when that blew, like, there was radioactive stuff flying across Europe. But I recently watched a video where a guy was saying actually because of the way it was dispersed, that wasn't going to be as big an impact as people are making it out to be. And I'm interested to know what he's basing that on, because if that's true, then nuclear is even less of an issue than, we would think. And yeah, I don't know. I just think like it's something we should be considering, and we should be weighing up, like, when something goes wrong, how bad actually is it? compared to the aggregation of accidents that happen in other power generation techniques. That's what I really want to know. I really want us to actually have a proper look instead of being political cowards. But, sadly, politics is just like that, they just want to get re-elected. It's very hard for someone to go into politics with ideals and come out of it without having been changed by the system. But I don't think there's anything you can do about that. That's just the nature of things. And this is one of the reasons why it doesn't really make any difference if I have a political opinion or not. The only time it counts is when I go to vote. I can, I suppose, get my opinions out there about politics, but there's so much noise going on that I don't feel like me being political makes much of an impact, There'll be someone else saying the same things that I'm saying, so what does my voice add? I don't know. And if I get too deep into politics, I just get stressed. I think right now I'm going through a period where I just need to de-stress. Like, I was getting really bogged down into the social media. I'm trying to help out Punk Rave Australia, but I kind of need a break from that just because, they're not really doing things the way that I think they should be done. There's some good stuff, but, I just got a little bit too stressed looking at things that I thought needed improving. And, I think I've been... I kind of been overestimating what my impact there is anyway, so I just need a break. And then, looking at my own social media, I'm like, how much do I really want to learn? Because there's sort of the idea of, maybe I could do it as a work from home job, but that's giving me stress in different ways, like thinking about my future if I became that kind of person. I don't know that I'm psychologically the right kind of person to be able to do that kind of stuff, because there's so much about social media, it's so fucking fake, it gives me the shits. And you try to talk to people, but it's, especially Instagram is, I don't know, I've mentioned that before. Anyway, I'm sort of in the mood where I just need to chill out. I need to watch more movies and stuff and just be a slob in that sense, instead of trying to stay aware of all the political stuff, all the science stuff, all the things going wrong in our world. There's just too much and nothing I can do to change it. So, maybe I focus on more arty kind of things for a bit and just chill out. But yeah, I've sort of been a bit disconnected from what movies are around these days. But I also have very specific tastes, so there's not really much point in me asking for recommendations from people because they don't really necessarily understand what I'm into. I had a lot of people a while back recommending Game of Thrones to me because they're like, oh, you like dragons, you should watch this. And I'm like, yeah, I like dragons, but that doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy everything that has a dragon in it. Yeah, because every time I turned on Game of Thrones, it was like a sex scene or something. And people are like, oh, that goes away in the later seasons. But if I'm going to commit to a series, I tend to like to start from the beginning. I don't like having to miss a whole bunch of stuff, so it's not going to happen. And then depending on the way dragons are depicted, I might just see it as a sort of blasphemy or something. I have my own idea about how dragons should be, so when they're not depicted that way, I get a little bit angry, and most fiction does not depict dragons the way I want them to be depicted, so, good luck to that. But I've got that bag of sanity stuff that I still haven't watched. I watched Venom, but I've still got Life After People, and the whole aliens thing. Yeah. Game of Thrones, yeah, it just doesn't sound like the thing for me. When I get started on a series, usually I try and see it up to the end, but there are some that I haven't. For example, 24, I think, I didn't watch the last... What did you think of it? I didn't watch the Game of Thrones ending because I don't watch it. I haven't watched any episode. I only ever walked in when someone was watching it, and it's always been a sex scene, and I'm just like, I am not interested in this. Occasionally I've seen snippets of things. Actually, I saw a GIF on Facebook, which I think must be making fun of the Game of Thrones ending, because it's like there's like one of those little white demon dudes, and he's throwing a spear into the sky, and it like flies, and then it hits, I think, is it Jim Carrey in the leg? And he's like, ah! And then he throws another spear, and then he's like, ah! Ah! And I don't know what movie it's from, but it's fucking hilarious. Which I imagine it must be a spear being thrown at a dragon, judging from the angle, but it's a really funny gif, and I showed it to my brother who did watch Game of Thrones, and he thought it was fucking hilarious. Logged out. Oh, you're back as Dark Waters. I read the synopsis of the episode instead. Ace Ventura. Oh yeah, maybe it was that. I never actually saw Ace Ventura, so I don't know. Um, yeah, no. Sometimes when I'm watching a TV show, but it's going a little bit slowly, if I want to know the ending, then yeah, I'll read the synopsis on like Wikipedia or IMDb or just Google it. Um, yeah, that's a good way to find out the ending. So my parents like watching this show called Death in Paradise, and oh, okay. I guess yeah. I've never watched Ace Ventura, but yeah, they've sort of mashed it up. If you can find that GIF, it's hilarious. Um, anyway, what was I? I just completely lost whatever thought I was onto. Hang on. Oh yeah, reading. Oh, so Death in Paradise. It's like, where is it set? It's set on some kind of island. I don't even remember. Um, and there's like this British cop who solves murders on the island. I'm like, this island has a shit ton of murder. I don't think the island's that big. Like, there's more murder going on this tiny island than there is in the whole of Sydney. But whatever. Um, yeah, and the formula's a little bit interesting. But so, like, it's a good show. But sometimes, like, it's just going a little bit slowly, or I don't have time to watch it. So I'll just go online and read what actually happened. And that's a good way to save myself some time, still sort of enjoy a little bit of it, but, just cut to the chase. I feel like I should be doing that with Doctor Who, because yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I finally sat down and watched the last two Doctor Who's that I hadn't watched. They're from like December. So the episode with the guy with the teeth in his face, um, that was I think the last episode of the actual season, and then the Christmas special with the mind controlled Dalek thing, and like with this Doctor Who, right, they've changed the Doctor to be a chick, and the way they've done that, I thought was actually really good because, they didn't make her overly girly. They've made some fun jokes about the gender swap, but personality. Actually, I'm not entirely sure that I like her personality at the moment, but it's still like feels more consistent instead of having like this huge girly shift. Um, I think the way they've handled that's quite good. But it's slow. It's so slow. Maybe the first couple of episodes were all right, but since then, like every episode, I'm just like, oh my god, move on. And I think the problem, so they got rid of Moffat, who was just annoying as a writer. Moffat also did the BBC Jekyll series, which I used to enjoy, but now I can't enjoy because I can see Moffat in like every corner of it, and it's just cringeworthy. I can't get over the cringe anymore, and just especially towards the end of that series, it's just like, ah. But they finally got rid of him for Doctor Who. He was good when he was working under Russell. Um, he sucks as a head writer. He's better as an episode writer. But as a head writer, like continuity errors everywhere, and then the Doctor's always making some sappy speech about, I don't know, fucking people being amazing for just being normal, or I don't know, dumb stuff like that. They finally get rid of him, and now they've got this Chibnall guy. But the problem that Doctor Who's having now is there's too much character development. They've moved away from the focus of the story, and now they're focusing on the people, and I don't give a shit about people. I'm not good at caring about, the kids' daddy issues or whatever. I like looking at older TV shows that I hated or was bored by when I was younger, like Twin Peaks for some reason. Now I like Mad About You on DVDs. Old Doctor Who is the shiznit. Shiznit, that's a funny word. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really watch a whole lot of Doctor Who. I only got into Doctor Who when the reboot happened, and I think that was after The Second Coming came out. So that's Christopher Eccleston with Russell T Davies as the writer as well, and they did like Jesus came back, but he was some random white dude in Britain, and it was kind of interesting the way they did that. And I think that maybe is what made me look at Doctor Who. And then when the original Doctor Who came out, the ABC played like a whole heap of old episodes, and I think I tuned in around the fifth Doctor. So people are like, oh, I love the fourth Doctor, but I never really watched a whole lot of the fourth Doctor. I started at the fifth. Is it Peter Davidson or something? And Um, yeah, watching a few of them got me into it. I really liked the fifth and the seventh Doctor, I think. The seventh, yeah. The sixth was really weird. I think that was kind of fun to watch, but his acting was terrible. It was like, it felt like Power Rangers, you know? It's so bad that you can't look away, and that kind of makes it good. I don't know. Anyway, current Doctor Who. I mean, the ever since the reboot, it's been a bit hit and miss. I liked the very first season with Christopher Eccleston. I thought that was done well, but I was not a fan of David Tennant. I'm sorry to all you people who are fanboys. Yeah, David Tennant's not my kind of thing. I think because he was too tolerant of humanity, whereas Christopher Eccleston's Doctor was like, oh my god, I have to deal with you monkeys fucking things up again. And I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that. Whereas David Tennant was far too forgiving and lovey-dovey, and there was even a love story with his like clone or whatever towards the end. I'm just like, yeah, alright. And then I think after he left is when they switched writers, and it just became like, you know, even more hit and miss. I haven't seen any rendition of Doctor Who. Maybe it's something I should do. I struggle to find things to watch because I've already seen every good show that is even remotely good. Yeah, I mean, Doctor Who's... I've got to admit, the thing that really got me into Doctor Who was probably a Fifth Doctor thing where I think there was like some element of a mind control plot which fits in with my usual theme of, you know, things to do with internal struggles, mind control, duality, split personality, Jekyll and Hyde, good and evil, false accusations. I don't know if there's like some overarching theme that you could fit them all into a category of, but yeah. And so there was one episode where like he had something on his head, and I don't exactly remember what happened, but it why does the Doctor Who oh, do you mean like why is there a different actor for all the doctors? Because like that's because he's an alien, and you know, they're Gallifreyans, but he's also a Time Lord, and it's a little bit MK Ultra. I don't really know what MK Ultra is. Yeah, no, so with the Doctor, I mean, one of the interesting things about the Doctor Who series is they kind of made it up as they were going along. So originally, the point of the show is that they would go to the past to learn about history and go to the future to learn about science. And that's something that's been lost. The very start of this season with the girl Doctor, they did a little bit of that science and history stuff, but I feel like they sort of lost it. The only MK Ultra I know is the Periphery song. I think was there like a Muse thing to do with that? I don't know, I had a friend who listened to Muse, and I feel like MK Ultra has something to do with that, but I don't remember. Anyway, so Doctor Who, go to the past, learn about history, go to the future, learn about science. That was the premise of the show. That was the whole point. I don't know, I posted videos on War between half and England. Oh, yeah, I think I watched something about that you posted about that. Anyway, Doctor Who, meant to be an educational show. And that's one of the problems I had with the David Tennant era is when they started bringing in love bullshit. That is not what Doctor Who is meant to be about. The set of story themes you listed fit MK Ultra and is the theme of Twin Peaks and most... Okay, I've never watched Twin Peaks, but I think Bastille was inspired by them for one of their songs. They had an album that was alright, even though it's not my usual genre. Yeah, anyway, Doctor Who's meant to be an educational show, and the way they started it, the original Doctor, as far as anyone knows, like he was like he could have been human. I think back then they even still reckoned he had a single heart. So you know, they hadn't really developed this whole alien narrative. It's just that he was time traveling. I guess time and space traveling, because they do go to other planets. And technically, if you're time traveling, if you think about it, the planet is moving around the sun, right? So if you try to time travel 3 months into the future, but you're staying in the same slice of space, you're going to end up in space, aren't you? You know, you have to travel through space to get to the same point on the planet that at a different time. Unless, like, you know, it's a momentum thing, and because you're already on the planet and it's already spinning, you still have the momentum, so as you travel in time, you're automatically pulled along. A bit like, you know, if I jump in one spot, the planet's momentum is still pulling me along, so therefore, instead of jumping and landing in a different spot, I'm being carried along by the Earth's. Project MK Ultra is a code name given to mind control program of experiments on human subjects that were designed and undertaken by the United States CIA. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I think I occasionally look it up and I just forget that that's what it's about. I don't think that describes quite my theme of stuff, but yeah, interesting. Anyway, tangents about jumping up in time and space, huh? Yeah, you have to aim for it, look into time travel. Yeah. But if you're being carried by the momentum, I guess it'd be okay. But then again, like, would that even work? You know, does time and space work like that? MK Ultra documents can be viewed, used to be classified. Oh, okay. That could be kind of interesting. But then if it's the real world, probably not, because nothing's really that. Anyway, no, I was meant to be talking about Doctor Who. So they travel in time and space, and I don't remember. I think the idea was the reason it's a blue police box. Have you seen the show Timeless? No, I haven't. Love the time travel inertia question. Ever thought about it? Yeah, I mean, it's a fun one, right? Because, I mean, it's not just the planet moving around the sun, it's the entire damn galaxy orbiting the black hole in the center of it, you know? And then from the center of the Big Bang, all the galaxies are still expanding outwards. So, you know, you can't just travel in time, you have to travel in space as well. But whether that inertia thing kicks in, I don't know. I'm sure some physicist, philosopher type could figure that out, but yeah, it's just something I kind of think about, and I'm like, I wonder what the answer is, because I don't have the background knowledge to really figure it out. But yeah, so Doctor Who, travel in time and space, past for history, future for science. And you know, the episodes are meant to alternate. See, now everyone wants to geek out on how time travel impacts. Yeah, it's really hard to have a conversation because you keep getting sidetracked, hey. But yeah, Doctor Who, I think originally they just had him as a time traveler. They hadn't really decided that he was going to be an alien. Apparently in the pilot episode, his granddaughter was acting very strangely and they had to cut that and reshoot it because, you know, it just wasn't going the right way. So I'm not sure how much, I don't remember how much they had already planned. But the thing is, like, it was actually surprisingly popular. They didn't realize how popular it was going to be. And they didn't realize how popular the Daleks were going to be. Because, you know, that, I mean, if you look at the Dalek, it's a very odd design, and yeah, I think, like, it just took off. It was one of those things that they just happened to have the right combination. I think, you know, there was some woman who played some big role in it. I don't remember. They put out a TV show, or like maybe a single episode of how the series sort of started. But the problem that happened is the actor who played the Doctor, you know, it was a really popular series and they didn't want to cancel it, but he was getting really old. He was starting to forget his lines. You can see sometimes in the old clips, if you can find them, that, you know, he'll say one thing and then remember the line, or someone will shout out the line to him. Like, it was really low production values, but that's how things were done back then. Even like from the Fifth Doctor onwards, you can sometimes see the little boom mic popping into the screen, or like the sets wobbling. It's amazing, you know, that's that whole retro thing. But yeah, the original actor was getting old and he was forgetting his lines, and, you know, he's just sort of deteriorating psychologically, mentally, like his brain just wasn't functioning anymore, and he didn't want to stop being the Doctor. But, you know, there's just a point where he couldn't do the acting anymore. So they're like, how are we going to solve this problem, you know? Because they want to keep the show going, but they need a way to explain the sudden change in actor. And, you know, they could just do it like James Bond, right? You know, you just swap the actor in. But I think James Bond is different because it's movies, and it's also clearly set in a real-ish world. I mean, there's bullshit that happens in it, but it's meant to be the real world, whereas Doctor Who has more of a sci-fi focus. So that gave him some flexibility, and they decided, well, instead of just swapping the actor, we'll say he's the same person, but because, like, you know, he's a time traveler, where does he get this technology from? He must be an alien or something, because humans don't have this technology. So you can say he's an alien, you can come up with this extra stuff, and yeah, he can regenerate into a different face, slightly different personality. They came up with a regeneration sickness, I think to cover for the fact that the new actor was adjusting to the role, but later on, they started making regeneration sickness more extreme. So the Sixth Doctor in particular, the regeneration from the fifth to the sixth Doctor was particularly traumatic, and the sixth Doctor like actually attacked one of his companions while he was still in regeneration sickness. And I enjoyed that, because that sort of goes into a little bit of a split personality, not in control of yourself kind of thing. I love the old Doctor Who shows. My grandmother worked in the science field and watched it. Yeah, it was a good series, especially when it was still doing what it was meant to do. I mean, there were rocky periods in the original run of the series, but yeah, they did it really well. But yeah, the whole regeneration thing kind of happened by accident, and it's kind of one of those happy accidents, because, you know, would they have come up with regeneration had it happened any other way? I don't know. So the Doctor's constantly changing his personality slightly. Originally, the idea, at some point, you know, once they decided he was an alien, they started bringing the alien race of Gallifreyans into it, and all the Time Lords and so on, and building a mythology around that. But where was I going with that thought? I don't know. You know, they just started developing it, and yeah, then this idea comes in that they have 12 regenerations. So one Time Lord can have up to 13 faces, and this is where Moffat fucks things up. Because, so, I think, what Matt Smith, no, not Matt Smith, Capaldi was supposed to be the last proper Doctor or something, I think. But if you count them, that's not how many there were. So what is it? William Hartnell, who was the second Doctor? I forget, because, it's the guy with the brown hair, the short hair, with the flute. What's his name? I don't know. Then the third Doctor was, is it Peter something? Or, no, that's the other guy. I don't know. Things finally know how it works. Yeah, so, I think Peter Capaldi was the last, like, proper Doctor in the original 13, but then, Moffat wrote some bullshit into the script so that they could keep doing regenerations indefinitely, that brought back the Gallifreyans, even though there'd been some time war when they originally brought back the series and they're supposed to be all gone. Anyway, and I think something in that bullshit is the reason why he was able to regenerate again, but then he regenerates into a woman. And the turning into a woman thing was established a long time ago in Doctor Who lore, because even when the series went out, like, I don't remember exactly when they brought in the gender swap thing, but they did develop things within books, because a lot of the books are considered canon, I think. I haven't kept up with it. And then, you know, other characters have gone through that kind of stuff, and there's a suggestion that they could, you know, have two heads, or, you know, weird shit like that, because they're aliens and sometimes the process doesn't go right. So, you know, there'd been calls for a woman to play the role for a while, and it sort of just happened. One of the interesting things with the new series is the Doctors kept getting younger and younger and younger. So I think that's one of the reasons they went for Capaldi, because they're like, oh shit, we have fallen into this sort of thing. So they brought in an older guy. So they're starting to play around with more stuff. This is very interesting. You're informative on this show, and it's as beloved as Star Wars or Star Trek. Yeah, I think Doctor Who, especially now that it's been rebooted, is considered the longest running sci-fi, like actually longer than Star Trek, although I think Star Trek has been more consistent, although they do keep bringing out different kinds of Star Trek, don't they? I don't really keep up, but yeah, no, it's been going for a long time, and because of the way that it was sort of pieced together on the run, it's quite complicated. But there's some interesting mythology. Like, one of the things I like about the Seventh Doctor, I mean, I think he might have been the first Doctor not to use received pronunciation. So received pronunciation is like the sort of standard British that was used on TV, and they used to use it in I think military broadcasts as well, but then they realized that their enemies, like the Germans or whatever, were really good at being able to mimic received pronunciation because it was so standard. So, you know, they started going, oh, maybe we shouldn't all have the same accent because it's too easy to fake it. Anyway, so the Seventh Doctor was the first one who didn't use received pronunciation, and he's actually really fun. His regeneration sickness is hilarious because, you know, he'd sort of lost a bit of his memory and wasn't sure what was going on, and, you know, his enemy, not the Master, the Rani, sort of took advantage of his memory loss and tried to make out like she was actually his companion, and was trying to use him that way. And there's this one scene where he's like playing the spoons, and this is the whole reason I picked up playing the spoons, because I saw it on Doctor Who and I'm like, oh, that's the thing. So I learned to play the spoons. But he had like jumbo spoons and then was playing it on her back and all this kind of stuff. It's fucking weird. But towards the end of his set of episodes, like before the series got cancelled, they were actually building up to reveal like this big plot point from the past, which they eventually, because the series got cancelled, they eventually had to finish that plot within the book series. But yeah, that's why he starts wearing a darker jacket towards the end, except then they changed some of the episode orders around, so sometimes it's not so consistent. But they were trying to give, like, hint at some darker stuff there. And he became a little bit more ruthless, even though he was kind of funny in a way, in terms of like sending a bomb to, I think, a fleet of Cybermen and like this huge genocide kind of thing. So I think maybe that's when they first really started playing. Well, actually, I didn't watch a whole lot of the older stuff, but they really were playing with the sort of morality of some of the stuff he was doing, because I think one of the things they really started to do well in the new season, the new series reboot, is they started questioning his interactions with the Daleks more. One of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who is in the first season of the reboot, I think episode 6, the first time we see Daleks again. And I think because with the reboot there was the Time War, where the Time Lords and the Daleks had this huge conflict which fucked up a lot of space-time and you know, damaged a lot of races apart from them. And, you know, he had to do something terrible to end the war, and he's got all this guilt about that, but also a lot of rage about the Daleks and the loss of his own species and whatever. And so when he finds a Dalek again, he kind of loses it and goes into this sort of rage. And his companion eventually towards the end points out that he's basically become like the Daleks, and that's an interesting theme, which it's another one of those themes that goes with what I like. But yeah, and they sort of went into the more of the complicated stuff, because he is kind of constantly on this murderous rampage against the Daleks. And it's like, well, yes, the Daleks are sort of unfeeling, horrible race, but his rage to them is a reflection of that. And in some ways, he's become a mirror image. And that gets pointed out to him more and more. And yeah, although one of the problems with Moffat is he made the Doctor start treating the Daleks as not the threat that they actually should be. That was one of the annoying things. You know, suddenly he's making jokes about them and all cocky and whatever. Yeah, so that's frustrating. Although the last episode with the girl Doctor and the Daleks, I feel like she sort of recognizes that, you know, she's become too much like them. But the resolution of that episode was quite unsatisfying, I found. What's this comment I'm missing? I have to check it out, so I'm going to take a shower and get some laundry done before I go out. Have a nice day, Rosia. Oh yeah, see ya. Have a good day. Yeah, no, I like when the characters who think, the characters who think they're fighting for good, right? But then they find out that maybe they're not as good as they thought. Like, maybe it's more complex than that. Maybe that's why... Maybe that's the sort of thing that impacts my political views as well. Because, you know, there are these groups who think they're fighting for the right thing. But if they got what they wanted, it could actually be a lot worse for a lot of people. Because they're only considering their own perspective and not considering how it would impact on other people. Maybe that's sort of all related. Maybe it's all connected back to this whole thing of, you know, you might think you're doing the right thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean you are. What was I mentioned in GOT last episode? Oh yeah, because I don't know what the show is, you know, I can't really say anything about that. But yeah, no, because like we all blatantly, oh okay. But yeah, we all want to think that our ideas and our way of doing things is right, because, you know, if it's not right, then why are we doing it? But yeah, it's very hard to sort of distance yourself from your own ideas and think, what do other people think about this, and could I be wrong? I think that's why we have confirmation bias. It's a well-known psychological thing where once we have an idea, we have a tendency to go and seek out evidence that confirms our own idea. Confirmation bias can be really hard to get around, even when you know about it. So, I think it's just a sort of an instinct. It's probably to do with survival, and social things are to do with our survival, because if you didn't have your social group, you'd be left alone to the elements and the other animals, and you'd get fucked up. So a lot of these things, a lot of the flaws of humanity do come back to aspects of our evolution to do with survival, and it can be really hard to get past that sort of stuff. So, you know, I mean, it's easy to criticize people, but at some point, they're not necessarily doing it on purpose. It's an instinctive thing that you can't just break through so easily. So yeah, I don't know. How do we get onto that topic? It's just, yeah, things are always more complicated than we think, and there's only so much each of our brains can really handle and understand at one time. What was that noise? Oh no, the possum, I think the boys patched up the hole in the roof, so the possum, I haven't heard it the last little while, even though I've struggled to sleep anyway. But every now and then I hear a funny noise and I'm like, is that possum? Maybe I'm just a little bit too, maybe being tired, I'm also reacting. Like, at the moment as well, I think I've been a little bit more paranoid about visual things, so I'll see something in the corner of my eye and be like, but nothing's there. I wonder if that's related to tiredness. But, yeah, the sound, that was definitely a sound, I'm sure. And I've heard stuff, and I don't know if it's like maybe the temperature shifting things in the walls, or if it's just, or if it could be possum or rat or whatever was in the fucking roof. Anyway, did I miss anything? I just sort of went on a little... No, it's still a GOT comment. I hate the way every time I press this thing, it comes up with this other thing. Top chat, live chat. Oh, what? Some messages, such as potential spam, may not be visible. Oh, let's just make sure it's live chat. Hope I didn't miss anything. I think life is like the way the group of friends were on that old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. Even the jerk could be important in some situations. Oh, I don't know what cartoon you're referencing. But yeah, like it's like I was saying with the One Nation thing, right? Sometimes you need crazy people to suggest crazy solutions that might actually work, with the whole nuclear technology. We should at least look at it, but only the craziest people are brave enough to suggest it, which is really unfortunate. Out of the guys who have a platform. There are plenty of people in science, I think, who try to suggest it, but the politicians won't listen. It's the crazier ones. And see, that's one of the things about Trump is I have heard some people saying, like, they hate everything else about him, but on one particular issue, he's the only person crazy enough to bring it up. And I think I've mostly heard that in terms of the China trade war. But it's also a bit like, okay, so maybe you get this one thing, but how much are you sacrificing to get it? So there's a little bit of a balance there. The thing about One Nation in Australia is, yes, they're a little bit crazy, but they also don't really stand much chance of influencing anything. They have the platform to make the suggestion, which in some ways, it maybe works against the case of nuclear, because people will be like, oh, that's the thing One Nation would suggest, and then maybe they discount it because of that. But no one else is bringing it up anyway. So what do you do? But in Australia, we have compulsory voting, so it's much harder for a particular interest group to take over the way they do in America, or like, hang on, I'm having some connection problems. Am I still online? Last time when the phone, gotta go to work, can't believe you managed to hold my attention long. Oh, yeah, see you later, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm hoping the connection's still okay, because last live stream that the phone went off, and then I tried to get back online and it didn't work. It got like 2 seconds of me trying to say something. But yeah, so if you can still see me, maybe leave a comment just so I know that it's still working. But yeah, with Australian politics, because we've got compulsory voting, it's harder for those weird interest groups to happen. I think in places like America where it's not compulsory voting, a lot of, okay, good, you can see me. Yeah, a lot of reasonable people feel like there's no point voting. I am here. Did you see in my chat I wrote? Um, did you write earlier in this conversation? Oh, I can see it now. I support your videos and channel. You're a great YouTuber and person. How strong are your glasses? Oh, I'm not talking about my glasses, sorry. Um, with politics. Okay, so special interest groups, right? Yeah. Oh, what was I saying about that? So, oh yeah, a lot of reasonable people, I think, in America feel like their vote doesn't count, so they don't vote. Um, and the problem with that is it means that the weird, crazy groups can get all their people together and all of them will vote because they're crazy and they have an idea that they want to push and they're, it's easier for them to get going. Whereas in Australia, everyone has to vote. So the reasonable people who feel like they don't count, they have to vote. And it does swing elections when everyone votes. There are some seats that, like, they were won by 400 votes or something like that. Yeah, one of the seats where I saw that happening, there were a lot of donkey votes, which is where everyone has to go vote, but no one knows what you write on your paper. So a lot of people just scribble on their paper. They don't do anything. They don't. So they voted, but they technically kind of didn't vote, and the number of donkey votes was bigger than the number needed to swing the vote another way. So if all those people had voted, it could have changed the result in that seat. But that's the kind of thing that happens in Australia. Whereas in America, you can get an entire, like, overall, like here it's only a seat by seat kind of thing. In America, it's like the entire game can be changed because reasonable people didn't vote. And if Australia's system was more like America's, then I think One Nation would get more power because they'd be able to mobilize more of their people to get out there and vote. Meanwhile, everyone sits on their bums at home and doesn't protest against them. So, yeah. We definitely have a different way of doing things in Australia that affects the way things happen or don't happen here, and that's why we don't have a proper Trump equivalent. I mentioned earlier in the stream about 2016 being a weird year, and in America you got Trump, in Britain you got Brexit, and in Australia all you got was Tony Abbott. And Tony Abbott, like, he was bad, but he wasn't that bad. We keep finding cheating voting computers in key locations. Yeah, I'm not sure how things work on that side of things in America. In Australia, we still have paper-based voting, although I don't know if some more localized elections have other stuff. I don't know. I don't remember. But we have paper-based voting, and I have worked in one of those voting counting places once. I worked the election one time, and there are people watching. You could not change those votes. Some people are like, oh, if it's done in pencil, can't you rub it out? Yeah, no, you don't understand how long that would take. It's not possible. And you can take pens in if you want as well. You don't have to use the pencils provided. Some places actually provide pens rather than pencils. So yeah, it takes a while to count the vote this way, but I like it. We did try and do our last census digitally, but it didn't work out very well. There was a crash, I think it was sort of like a DDoS thing, but if you consider it, there's so many people logging in on the same night to try and do it. Was it actually a hack attack, or was it just that we were all logging in at the same time and for some reason they didn't realize that was going to happen? I don't know. But that census was a mess, and so some people are worried about whether or not the results will be accurate, because there are a lot of people who wanted to boycott after that. And then people also, because it didn't work, they had to fill it out on different days afterwards. The census is all supposed to be done on one night, but because it wasn't working, they gave us like an extra couple of weeks or whatever. And so people are like, well, how accurate is it? It's not really it's not really a snapshot of a single point in Australian population. Yeah, so no, I like that we still have the paper-based voting, and they do recycle all the things. So yeah, it's time consuming, but I guess Australia's population is also a lot smaller than America's, even though we've got almost equivalent landmass, I think. There is the challenge of getting to remote areas to make sure everyone there votes and that they know what's going on. But yeah, I think our system is better set up to avoid extreme results. It's always the two centre parties who are fighting, so the centre right and the centre left party. They're the main two options, and everyone else, sort of scattered around. I think the after those two, the next party with the most influence might be the Greens. They get more of the vote than the other minor parties, but not really enough to do a whole lot. Watch the old film gangs of New York. The DVD has an extra feature on how shady it used to be. Some parts never change. Yeah. Yeah. America's system is weird though. Like the electoral colleges, I think that's a weird system. I mean, I can kind of understand some things because we also have, so our lower house, the population is split up equally into like districts or whatever, and those are electorates, and then each electorate elects a candidate, and then those candidates go to government and they congregate into their different parties, and the party with the most people generally forms government. If it's a hung parliament and they don't have an absolute majority, which is quite rare for us, they have to make deals with minor parties and other candidates in order to be able to form government, but that doesn't happen very often, and yeah, it sort of works. It's not a terrible thing. So that's the lower house, but we also have the upper house, the Senate, and the way that's decided is each state elects a certain number of people. I think the major states elect the number of people, and then the territories get maybe like 2 candidates or something. And so that's a little bit closer to the way the Electoral College works, I think. But we've got less states, for one thing. And yeah, but the idea is because Australia used to be a bunch of different colonies. Lucky, that's all I can say. Yeah, we used to be a bunch of different colonies, and so each of the colonies didn't want to give the bigger states more power. So at the lower house is based on population, the upper house is based on states, and but it works all right, and I think it helps to balance things a bit more. And the upper house, the Senate, is kind of like they're the house of review. So the lower house comes up with the policy and votes it through, and usually the government will get all their stuff through the lower house because they have a majority. It would be very unusual for them not to. Like they would. There's a slimmer margin this time, so if some people are sick or can't vote for some reason, or don't make it into the house in time for the voting, then it might get skewed, and that happened last year, I think. But in the upper house, it's mainly about looking at the policies and stuff that have been passed by the lower house, and that's where the government doesn't necessarily have a majority. And this is one of the things that happened when Tony Abbott was around, right? He had the lower house pretty firmly, but the upper house was able to reject some of his worse things that he tried to pass. So good for us. I think that's why Aussies are starting to vote more for minor parties in the upper house, just so that those big parties can't get every bullshit idea they want straight through. There was a time when the Liberals had both the lower and the upper house. That was when John Howard passed Work Choices, which was a workplace reform, which it was a really bad idea. It actually affected real people. It wasn't just union propaganda. It actually affected people. And that's how they ended up losing the next election. We ended up with Rudd and how many years of instability because they keep knifing each other in the back. But anyway, since 2007, I think we've had 1, 2, and then Rudd again, and then Tony, and then Turnbull, and then ScoMo. Five prime ministers. It's too many. I don't know. Anyway, what was I rambling about? Let's see, I'm up to 34% battery. I've been going for almost 2 hours. Well, is there anything anyone has a particular question about? Because, I don't know, at some point I've got to do some other stuff. I'm also really tempted to have a nap. I've been having too many naps lately. You can discuss many topics. You'll be great on a podcast. Oh, well, I guess this is my version of a podcast. Hey, I don't really know, like, what is the basis of podcast? I know there are like some themed podcasts, and I don't think I could do that because if I was able to stick to a single theme, I would have a more structured YouTube. But I can't. I'm constantly jumping from thing to thing, and that's why I don't have any particular niche. If you were trying to describe the niche of my channel, it'd either be long rambles with tangents or just me and the stuff in my head. I think that's the sort of niche that I am. It's just like whatever I'm thinking about. I don't know that you could define it any better than that. Yeah, so podcast, if I had to have a theme for a podcast, I don't think it'd work because I'm just jumping from thing to thing. Yeah. Anyway, so what else is going on? Well, yeah, the temptation to nap just because I haven't been sleeping well. Hey, here's a fun thing. So if I like, if you start talking and then you put your hands like this, it kind of changes the way you hear your own voice. So na 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 na. I don't know. I find that interesting. Throwing ideas around, like you say, make a podcast on Doctor Who, then just talk freestyle. Oh, you mean like have a different topic per episode? I think that's kind of what I do with my video blogs already. I attempt to stick to a topic, but then I get sidetracked. Yeah, I don't know. I don't listen to podcasts. I think that makes it hard for me to really know what they're about. I have seen, is it Joe Rogan clips on YouTube, but I've never watched a full podcast. I think I don't have the patience, you know. I mean, you guys sticking around for 2 hours, that's amazing. I don't have that kind of concentration span, I think. Like, I can talk, but once I have to watch, I think it's a bit like sport, right? So I'm not a sport person, but if I'm going to be involved in sport, I'd rather play sport than watch it. And I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I just prefer to do things a lot of the time rather than watch. I think music is one of the exceptions because there are some really good musicians out there, but I always tend to find myself, once I know the song, I tend to sing along, and so I guess that's kind of being involved in some way instead of just passively absorbing it. So yeah, I think like long form media is a bit difficult for me to just sit down and watch. Movies are a bit different because, you know, you get invested into the story. I think fiction is a different area. But yeah, when it comes to things involving people and in like a real world setting, I'm not so good at watching them all the time. Maybe documentaries I can watch. Those are different though from just people talking for a long time. I wonder where the line is for me. But yeah, I'm not good at just like watching people talk about stuff for a long time. I think that's why I like the Joe Rogan clips when I do stumble on them because they're edited down to make a certain point before they move on to another topic. I presume they move on to another topic, or else it's just not quite relevant to the particular clip. But yeah, it's been a while since I've stumbled onto one of them. There was a funny thing where someone got, like, I think Jordan Peterson went on Joe Rogan, but maybe went on more than one occasion, I'm not sure, and then someone's edited it to make it look like Jordan Peterson is talking to Jordan Peterson, and it's some of the funniest shit. Oh my god. Because it makes it look like he's criticizing himself doing something. I don't know, you should look up like Jordan Peterson versus Jordan Peterson or something. It's funny. I think they misspelled his name for the second version though. I don't know, try and find that. Oh dear, the wonders of editing. It's a bit like that Game of Thrones thing with the Ace Ventura, I think it was, you guys were saying. Yeah. There are too many episodes, books to draw in an audience, then... Oh, there are so many. Sorry, my brain's starting to fart, so I'm not reading properly. There are so many episodes, books to draw in an audience, then you can just talk on anything in chunks. A lot of the shows do that. Each person brings different stuff to conversation. Topic, switch. Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm getting a little bit tired. The sun's moved. You can see Hopi's sitting on a... I wonder if we turn around, can we see Hopi? Whoa! There he is. He's just having a snooze. Woo! Wow, I think my camera must have been trying to focus there because it made a funny noise. Yeah, what else? How much battery have I got? 31%. It's not bad for, you know, a phone battery, doing the video and streaming at the same time kind of thing. yeah, I'm still using my Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. It's been doing pretty well. I feel like my other tech needs an upgrade though. I just don't have the money. So if you watch my last video, there's a bit of editing in that, and yeah, my computer is starting to struggle with a lot of editing. It takes a while to render stuff, although low-res stuff does seem to process a lot faster, which makes sense. Yeah, no, I was watching Spectre Sound Studios has done a review on DaVinci Resolve software, which looks amazing. It's a bit like HitFilm in the sense of like being sort of all in one package, but it seems a lot more flexible. So I'd like to give it a go. But when I finally managed to track down the system requirements, my computer's not good enough. I mean, I'm still using Windows 7 for one thing, and a lot of new software is not designed for Windows 7, which is a shame because it's such a good system. But this is the last year, I think, that Windows 7 is going to be supported, so when that runs out, I'm going to have to think of something to do. That's why the social media job would have been good, because then I could save up for a better computer. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I don't want to update to Windows 10. I tried it, and it kind of messed with a bunch of my settings, and I didn't like it, and I don't like the way that it's now set up to try and encourage advertising to come onto your system. So yeah, I'd like to keep Windows 7, but once they stop supporting it, it's not going to be as secure online, so I'll have to think about what I do about that. Whether I take that machine offline and use my phone more for internet stuff, but I hate typing on a touch screen. So maybe I get like a small laptop for cheap or something, or I don't know. See, like my computer, the good thing about it is I've got Photoshop on it from before they started a lot of updates screw with music programs. Yeah, it changed my music program as well, and I'm like, where is all my stuff? Fuck you. Although I don't have, my music programs, like my actual music production software, that's all on my Mac. My Mac has been taken offline a long time ago because that's still running Snow Leopard, and the updates for that are long gone. So anytime I try and put something on that computer, I use a USB stick. Yeah, but my PC, so it's got Photoshop from before they started the subscription model. I hate Adobe's subscription model. I think it's a real dick move. So yeah, I want to be able to keep my old Adobe Photoshop software, you know, no subscription one. And I think there might be a way to transfer the license to a new computer, but it's going to be a fuck around, and I don't want to have to go through all that. There's so much I'd have to transfer over. So I'm thinking maybe if I get like a small laptop, that might be a solution, so that I can keep using my regular computer for things like Photoshop. But on the other hand, the computer, like it's not doing so well handling video production, especially now that HD is a thing. Update screw artist over, yeah. Oh, with the computer, like the Mac updates, that screwed up some of my fellow students back when I was studying music, because the updates didn't work with the software until they patched it and all that. So I'm like, let other people be early adopters, and then, once they've worked out the problems, then you should update if it suits you. But it doesn't really suit me. I don't really need the software update. I just need the spec update. So I suppose I could maybe update some of the components of my computer, but I think there's only so far you can go with that because it's got to be compatible with the motherboard, and yeah, I don't know that I want to be mucking around with all of that. So at some point I will need a stronger computer. Draw and record, make videos, edit video, so handle updates. Yeah. Do you use a Mac? Because it seems to be worse on Mac. Windows updates seem to be a bit more stable, whereas Mac tends to muck with things. And sometimes I wonder if they're doing it on purpose to make you have to update all the bloody things again. Definitely on phones it feels that way. My phone though, it's still running. I didn't do the Oreo update. It's not running the absolute latest software because when I looked up what's changed, you get extra emojis, but you get a sort of more sluggish interface, and I was like, I don't know that I want to sacrifice my phone speed for emojis. Keep old stuff to do certain work. Okay, yeah. Yeah, no. My computer's, I'm happy with my Windows computer. I'm just not so happy with the way it handles video. And then if I want to get a computer that can handle video, then I probably will need to get a new desktop, not just a laptop. Like a laptop might get me through in terms of connecting to the internet, but it's not going to help me with video editing. Although it might be better than my current desktop computer, because that's from 2011. So even a laptop today might have some advantages over that. But I don't know, the technology feels like it's been going a bit slower than it used to. So yeah, I'm not sure how much benefit I would really get. If it was like 20 or 30 years ago, then yes, anything 5 years later would definitely be an improvement. But it doesn't seem to be the case so much anymore. They can add more cores, but we've kind of reached, or almost reached, the limits of how small we can get the hardware and how fast we can get the hardware, and we're now having to find different strategies, and it's been very incremental rather than the exponential growth we used to see. So yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about all the technology side of things going forward. Something to think about, especially since I don't have really the money to do it. But I'll work something out, I guess. Anyway, so we're past 2 hours. I think I might get going soon, if there's nothing else. So there's 2 of you still here. Oh, imagine how a crappy old laptop is way more powerful than what they used on Terminator 2. Like the stuff we have now compared to the computing technology they used the first time they went to the moon. Think about that one. The computers they needed to, do those initial space flights and all that. We have so much more in some of our simplest gadgets now. It's interesting. But potentially dangerous if is it solar storms, or I don't know, electromagnetic pulse type stuff. There's a lot of space phenomena that could take out a huge amount of our electronics all at once, and we've become so reliant on technology that I think would be an interesting struggle for us to get to. If you look at it that way, it's, I don't know. Yeah, no, we've come a long way in like 50 years in terms of computing, but I feel like the progress is slower, or at least the practical applications of progress is slower. Because like 5 years, it used to be that if you had a computer for 5 years, you wouldn't be able to run anything on it, whereas nowadays you can still use. Yeah, I thought that was a typo, but yeah, these days you can still use old machines to do a lot of stuff. Like my computer is from 2011, and that's before I had HD video recording and editing and whatever. And it can do HD editing. It's maybe not the most efficient at it, and it struggles sometimes, but it can do it. Whereas, if it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, 5 years, the changes are so great that you need a new computer to keep up. That's how it used to be. Yeah, so I feel like the practical side of updates and upgrades and whatever, it's not moving as fast as it used to be. I'm sure there are technologies that are still having some exponential growth, but I don't feel like it's the way it used to be, and especially in the way it affects our lives. Like maybe with quantum computing, that's where they're making the advances, but that's not accessible to the public. So in a way, I feel like that doesn't really count. But yeah, I think if all our electronics were taken out, do you ever think about that? That's something I wonder, like how would we survive? Because these days, even our cars have little computers controlling things. So if those get taken out, how do you drive your car to get anywhere? And when you think about the way cities are laid out, if you took out all the public transport, all the cars, whatever, how would we get anywhere? How would we distribute food? I think that would be absolute chaos to just lose all our electronics. Or even if we lost a big chunk of electronics and only some worked, I think that'd still be massive chaos because of the way our society has built around that now. But at the same time, like, what can you really do about it? Not much, because electronics are a big part of how we've managed to expand a lot of different things. You know, we've become more efficient in certain production areas. And should we really be too concerned about an event that has such a small chance of occurring? You know, it's a very small chance. If it did occur, it would be catastrophic, but it's the same as if, like, our gigantic meteor hit the earth. You know, like, what are we going to do about that? Should we live our lives wondering what's going to happen and worrying and building bunkers, or should we just get on with it and, you know, deal with it when it happens? I don't know. Because I know there's some people who get paranoid about that stuff, and so they'll, what with the electronics, you know, they'll try and grow their own veggies and whatever, but there's only so far that's going to take you unless you have a full-on farming property or whatever. How are you doing, Hopi? Hey, you made your hair all fluffy. Hey, you staring at me? He's probably wondering why I'm still sitting around here. Oh, you're giving me a face now, like, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. Say hello to everyone. Oh, big stretch, come here. Here's Hopi. Been very patiently listening to me ramble on, haven't you? Yeah. Yeah. He's a bit tired and it's been a bit cold, huh? You want your jumper? We'll get your jumper on a bit later. If you do good work, the tech itself should not be keeping up with the Joneses. Sometimes more American. I'm a little bit confused about what you're trying to say there. But yeah, no, I think if electronics went down, like in a widespread sort of way, there'd be a lot of people dying just because, you know, we wouldn't be able to support things the same way, especially if you consider, like, you know, transportation requiring electronics these days. You'd have a few rust buckets from the 70s still kicking that you might be able to transport things in, but it's going to be very difficult. Yeah, I know, it's sort of a post-apocalyptic scenario, covered two separate topics in one. Yeah, I think that's why I'm a bit confused about what you're trying to say there. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen if that ever occurs. So you kind of can't worry too much about these things. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm still running out of steam now, so I think I might go. Hope you're having a good day and all that. And I will see you in the next whatever. I'm going to try and do streaming maybe once a week if I can, but it depends a bit on what's going on. I need the house to be empty because it's like weird just sort of talking to the camera. People are around and they'd be like, what are you doing? And they'd also be distracting. Like it's hard enough for me to stay on topic. So yeah, I think I'll try and do it, but it depends on what's going on. So I think Mum's the most likely person to be home. So if she's home, I don't know. Friday's probably a good day for me to vlog because for me to live stream, because I try and use Monday and Tuesday to do things like night here, 11, 12 p.m. Yeah, I try and do things on Monday and Tuesday. So like if Punk Rave sends me something, that's when I try and film that. Because on Wednesday I have bonds and I'm working every Wednesday in June. And then Thursday I need to recover. So that kind of leaves Friday for me to do live streaming because like I don't want to do Punk Rave stuff on Thursday and Friday because I will be so tired and, you know, I've got to try and have a bit more energy for that. So yeah, I think Friday, if I can do it, is probably the best day for me to stream, but Mum doesn't always work on Fridays, so I might have to try Thursdays, but I will be really tired, so I don't know if I'll be able to get up, but yeah, we'll see how things go, and I'll try and live stream more often, because that's what people have voted for. I'll try and change up what time I live stream, but it's difficult, because I do need people to be going out of the house. I can't wake up that early, and yeah, night just doesn't really work very well. So we'll see. As for regular video content, I don't know what the next video is going to be, so I guess we'll just see how we go. Probably trying to film something on Monday or Tuesday again, so yeah, maybe if I do like one video a week and one live stream a week, that could be like my pattern going forward. But it depends on what I get up to, because I am sort of also thinking I'm feeling a bit more creative lately, so I might do more of that stuff, especially with music. I mean, my deadline to find a band was winter, and tomorrow is winter. So, going back to my solo project, which is good timing because I just started to feel like being creative again, and like I could write solo music again. So I'll get back into that maybe starting tomorrow. I don't know, we'll see what stuff I need to do, but I do want to get back into making music. So I might end up, depending on how carried away I get, I might end up sacrificing some of my video making to be able to do the music, because there's only so much I can do in a day. And also my energy levels, sometimes I can't just do work all day. I need to have breaks and just let my brain refresh, and especially because I've not been sleeping, sometimes I just need a nap. So yeah, we'll see how things go. Visual art, I sort of have some impulses to do visual art as well, also some poetry. This is a time to be like prime time, like talk show time, framing. Oh, so this is a good time for America? Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought I'd try and get on a bit earlier than usual. Usually I would live stream at 2 p.m., but I thought, well, for the Aussies, if some people are on lunch break, maybe if I go a little bit earlier, like 12 to 2, people's lunch break, and then, yeah, if it's good for America, the main people who are missing out are Europe, and I know I've got a few people from Europe who would like to watch. I think the best time for Europe would be if I could wake up first thing in the morning, but it's not going to happen, so if any of my European friends are watching the replay of this, I'm really sorry that I'm not a morning person for you guys. I know if I do live streaming at like that 8 o'clock time, that was sort of lunchtime for Europe, but yeah, that's a bit hard for me to do because then more people are around the house. So, and I'll probably watch videos at night. I think that's what I'm trying to get into the pattern of. Yeah. So I'm not really sure. My brain feels like it's shifting again lately, so I might end up doing things a little bit differently, doing a bit more art and maybe not so much video, but we'll see. I'll definitely try and do live streaming once a week, and yeah, we'll see how things go. But I'm tired, so is my phone. My phone's now to 21%, and if it gets down to 15%, it's going to complain and probably cut out, so I'm just going to go put it on the recharge. And I'm going to make some tea. That's how I'm excited. I'm going to make some tea. So, hope you're having a good day, whether you're watching this live or in the replay. And I will do my best to schedule the next live stream before it happens so that you know what's happening. Yeah, and other than that, I guess community tab, if anything comes up, that's where to look. And I'm also on... Awesome show, be safe. Yeah, well, it's not like I'm going anywhere. I don't do enough in my life to not be safe, really. I'm not even going out to gigs that much at the moment. I don't even know what bands to follow right now. But if I get back into music, maybe I'll, awesome typo, wait, what's... Oh, okay. I thought you meant like the typo was awesome, instead of awesome being the thing that was typoed. Yeah, oh my god. I'm pretty tired though, so I'm amazed I've been able to keep going for more than 2 hours. But yeah, no, I don't know what bands to follow, but I suppose if I start getting back into music, that gives me more incentive to see what's going on in the scene, so maybe I will start going out to more shows, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next time, whenever that is, whatever that is. Now, how do I stop this again? Are you sure?